Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to HJN Graphix. And so, today on HJN Graphix, I'm proud to present to you something different right here. Something that's a little bit older than Transformers Battlegrounds, but also a bit more recent than Uncharted 4. I'm specifically talking about what was at the time the latest installment in the Far Cry series, Far Cry 5. So yeah, this was another title that I played, but of course we cannot forget that there was Far Cry New Dawn, as well as the more recent upcoming title, Far Cry 6, which is supposed to be quite a bit different than many of the others so far. Far Cry 5, though, I will say, actually does have quite a few things in it that I tend to find a bit more appealing at times. First of all, the first-person shooter sort of thing. Second of all, the open-world engine that typically plays out. And number 3 would pretty much be the kind of story that develops. You start off as a certain deputy, whom of course you put together yourself. It's another one of those games where you can customize your own avatar in a way, and then use this avatar to navigate throughout the game's story, canon, queue, and otherwise. And you basically go along with the rest of the police force, the local police force, who go inside a church and encounter a criminal, a cult leader who is of religious beliefs, just simply called the Father. At that point you go in there to arrest the Father, and then that's of course when, at the same time that you go in to enter the helicopter to take this guy away, then that's of course when a lot of nightmares start breaking down. The helicopter crashes, you survive somehow, and some people unfortunately end up getting killed, whereas the Father ends up getting let loose into the wild pretty much. So the main thing here is that you have a master criminal who's on the loose in this game, and you have to go through a lot of lengths in order to combat through every single occupied territory by this cultist followers of all sorts. Followers whom of course are armed to the teeth. It's basically like most other sort of war zone things that take place, but this one is of course based on religious dominance that supposedly is trying to corrupt the entire world. I really do like the premise of this game. The fact that you can actually go as far as to take out these sort of religious believers by any means. Because truthfully, there is not ever a thing in the world where religion will ever become a part of our society. Because all it's done is lead to trouble. It's led to so much problems that we've had. The Dark Ages, of course, were quite a big point in history to reflect on this whole entire phenomenon as a whole. Far Cry 5, however, really does have quite a few things, though, that you can adjust to at some point. First of all, you got the kind of weapons that are all over the place. From SMGs to pistols, revolvers, shotguns, assault rifles, LMGs, rocket launchers, and a lot of other things, to explosive devices like grenades, flashbangs, mines, tripwires, and pretty much a lot of others. And then who could forget the kind of things that are taking place, including the formatting of different types of missions that you can complete. Missions, of course, that can involve a lot of different types of Warzone-based things, including stealth combat and all-out combat and plenty of other things. This can be a lot like most other titles out there in the world of survival horror or stealth or whatnot. But this game overall does have quite a few unique parts that I really do enjoy. I really do enjoy a lot of the things out there when it comes to driving the vehicles around, because you get to crash into anything. You get to take down enemies by running them over. You get to run into other criminals' cars, run them off the road pretty much. And then of course, it's not just with the cars, but also with many other vehicles. Boats, ATVs, motorbikes, and even planes can be used at any point in time. There are some missions in these games that do rely on these kind of vehicles to be used as a way of escorting or possibly offering support in most ways possible. I especially remember at one point in the mission last year when I played Far Cry 5 pretty much, in which I was able to do quite a lot in order to get through an entire area that needed to be liberated. And I even remember that a bunch of silo towers had to be destroyed by usage of a plane that had a mounted minigun on it. So at this point, it's fair to say Far Cry 5 is loads of fun. Probably, in a way, it could be average, but who even cares about that? Because if it's a good game, let's probably not overlook a lot of these things. It's also important to note that if you do complete certain missions of all sorts, if you complete a nice number of missions in certain areas of the map, then you do get to fight different bosses. The bosses, of course, are known by the names of John Seed, Faith Seed, and Jacob Seed. These three are, in fact, the highest ranking cultist followers of the Father, and they themselves must be eliminated at any cost. They are practically the ringleaders of many of these operations that are taking place throughout the whole map, and they themselves have their own way of, simply put, trying to take you out in any ways possible. Faith basically controls the boats, John basically controls the trucks, and Jacob basically controls the helicopters in these areas. And with many things that you could potentially find in as well, certain missions will also allow you to potentially find different survivors, whom of course can join with your rebellion. And of course, there are certain points in the map which are like the headquarters of these different rebellion forces that take place. They are in fact the resistance that are aiming to fight against the Father and this enormous army that have been established throughout the entire world and the game itself. And once you complete all of that, once you get all of the Seed family pretty much killed off, John, Jacob, and Faith are all dead, then well, you get to go head to head against the final battle, where the Father is waiting for you. And let me tell you, this guy is just no joke. I was able to look into the ending of this whole entire thing, and well, believe it or not, it is just crazy. It is just insanity by all ways necessary. Because this guy is able to decimate the world so many ways, and yet you yourself are somehow spared. After all that time that you had spent killing so many of the Father's followers in religious beliefs and whatnot, this guy wants to use you for something. The ending cutscene does in fact allow for something of some sorts to take place, but yet it almost ends as if it were a cliffhanger, which would possibly mean that another Far Cry game would supposedly take place, but with Far Cry New Dawn and Far Cry 6, I've not necessarily seen a whole lot about that. Overall though, it is pretty fun. It's not necessarily boring, but I can't naturally point out that if it's supposed to be better than most other FPS games, or if it's just there because it's a fluke in the series. The fifth in the series entirely, Far Cry 5, does have plenty to offer. You probably will never get bored after a long period of time playing it. It's like with many other games that I've played for very long periods of time as well. So at this point, it's fair for me to point out that I will probably look into other titles that I will be able to talk about here at HJN, but until then, if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.